Hey friends, welcome to the Creative Shop Talk podcast. Today, something a little bit different. I'm answering a listener's question about my experiences and what are my mistakes that I've made along the way. So today's episode, we're going to give you 7 mistakes that I've made along the way. I wanted to call it maybe my 7 deadly sins or confessions from a real retailer life. Hang on and grab a pen. I'm hoping that my experiences and my mistakes, I guess I'm calling them mistakes, but things I've learned along the way will help you in your journey. And maybe you'll see some things that you're doing and feel like, you know what? We all have a hot mess time at times in our business. And I hope that you glean a little bit of information from this. So I'm going to share some mistakes and how I've remedied them and what I'm doing now. So hopefully that makes sense. Okay, stay tuned. Let's chat about my 7 deadly sins. Running a retail business doesn't have to be so hard. Welcome to the Creative Shop Talk podcast, the go-to podcast for creative shop owners, studio owners, and independent retailers. I'm your host, Wendy Batten, retail business coach and mentor. Each week, I'll share simple, proven business strategies, inspiring stories from fellow retailers, and advice from industry experts. Together, we're going to work to find the success you want from your retail business with more profits in your till and a little more joy in your life. Okay, one of the first things that I talk about a lot in the podcast here, and if you're new around here, by the way, hey, hi, we're so glad you're here. So first of all, I'm Wendy and I'm imperfect, just like everybody is. So even as a coach or even as a business coach, I think sometimes people put us maybe on a pedestal, and that sounds really dorky and whatever, but that's not true. I mean, we've all had experiences, and I've had a lot, and I'm still failing every day, but we learn from our failures, right? And I'm hoping that some of these hard things that I've learned along the way will help you. So one of the first things is Superwoman Syndrome. Now, I've spoken about this, and I talk about it regularly. Superwoman, Superman syndrome. Really, it is, I can do anything. I can do it my way. There is a time to bootstrap. And I did a whole podcast on when, stop DIYing everything in our business. There is a time to bootstrap. There is a time to DIY all the things when you're first building. But as we're growing, we do need to learn to let go. We do need to learn to not wear that Superwoman cape and just do all of the things. There is a time to leapfrog. I mean, I'm smart, I'm capable, I can figure it out. That was always my mantra with almost everything in business. And we've been in business, my husband and I, for many years. And I've run, 2 successful businesses, onto our 3rd here. But, there's always new challenges. And I don't know why it took me so long to understand in my big, thick skull that why not use other people's help who've already gone through the journey. Why? It's silly to not leapfrog and not learn from the people who have gone before you, right? Or who are going through it with you. I don't know why we hold that so tight. And again, that's part of that bootstrapping mindset, I guess, when it comes to to running our business. So that was a big thing for me. That was and continues to be something I always have to work on. And actually all of these things I'm still working on, I think all of them. So what I'm doing now, just to fast forward and how it's changed for me, I did realize that was pretty dumb for me, and it wasn't serving me, and it wasn't serving my business. So I've stopped DIYing everything. I've started investing in other things and other people to help me with my business. So that was one of the first things. I also call that arrogance. I feel like I was maybe being really arrogant in my early parts of running my shop. And that's hard to say. It's hard to admit, but not asking for help and DIYing everything in my business is kind of arrogant. It's like, I know everything and nobody knows anything. So anyway, there you have it. But now I've realized that's not the way of the world, that there's nobody running a business that way. So all of these tips that I'm sharing today, they're all kind of based around, stepping into that CEO role. I had to learn to step into that CEO role, right? So number 2 that I would call, I'm not sure it's a mistake or something that happened to me is I took everything personally a lot and hard. I took business really personally. So I would take, if somebody said, your shop is dumb, or this is, you don't have anything nice here, or your prices are too high, or whatever the thing was, or they left a bad review, or, all the things, right? I took it so personally. Like, I mean, deep down inside, I'm like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, which I think serves me in lots of other ways, but it was really hard because, friends, business is personal. I don't care what they say. The businesses that we run are personal. We run businesses that we grow from our heart and soul. And so it did take me a long time to realize that, hey, maybe that person that left that review is not, good intentioned, or maybe that review isn't fair, or maybe it was fair and I needed to learn from it and not just get sad about it or take it hard. The other thing that I think I had a hard time with, and I know I did, and I'm trying to tiptoe around this, but I probably wasn't really open to other people's ideas, critique, if you will. So I wasn't asking for it. I wasn't asking for my team's input. And I wasn't asking for other people's advice, or I don't know, maybe that, I don't know if that makes sense. But so, I would take everything personal if they would say, well, maybe what if you did this or did that? And I'd be like, nope, do it my way. Again, back to that arrogant thing. And I'm not an arrogant person, just FYI, but I just think it's this self-employed mindset of, bootstrapping it and doing it my way. And I have my vision, which is good, but sometimes we have to open our eyes to other things. But the bad reviews or the mean things that people say, I also went through a period of time where somebody took one of my business courses and then trademarked the name, and we went through a whole thing there that hurt, and I took it really personal, then, when people steal things from you and all of that. And a lot of you listening have been through that, and I know. So I that would really bring me down, and it would just wear me out. So now, fast forward into how things have changed, and what I'm doing now is I'm just super aware of it. We actually did a podcast on emotions and mindset and all of that. So we'll tag that in the show notes. But I'm really aware of it. I'm also way more legitimized, if that makes sense. I've legalized. That is not a word. I'm making up words on the podcast today, but I've just made things more legal and more legit, if that makes sense. I have copyright and we have, that kind of thing happening now. And we're just more attentive to those things. But also when it comes to bad reviews now, I review every review. And again, that's the podcast that we did, a podcast on, how to take negative reviews and what to do with those and what to learn from them. So I kind of evaluate them. Does it make sense? Am I taking feedback? I pay attention to feedback, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm really aware of it now. I try not to take it as personal, but we still do. I still do. Business still is personal, but I've learned to handle that a little bit better. And again, don't feel bad if you're feeling like your business is personal. I don't think we have a separation on that. Sorry to all those business gurus that say we do, but understanding the definition, or understanding how to evaluate and to take, maybe criticism is probably hard to take, but if we reframe that and we think of it as, constructive criticism or constructive advice and that kind of thing. But again, mean things are going to happen. The larger you grow as well, the larger the pool of people you're in front of. That is something I had a hard time adjusting to as my business coaching has grown and grown and grown, and the podcast here has grown. Thank you for sharing, everybody, and for listening. But it's grown, and so there's more, the pool is bigger of people's opinion, and people are very opinionated. So there's bound to be people that I don't resonate with and don't like my advice. That's cool. I'm learning to say, okay, you're not my people. The same thing if somebody walks in your shop and says, your prices are too high, or this is dumb, or, whatever, they're not your people, right? So we have to learn, and I'm more confident in that now. So being more confident in what you're doing and what people are saying and who's saying it. The other thing I will admit to is that when family, friends, people that weren't really my customers, or, they weren't my customers, but they were in my world, and they would say, that's a dumb idea, or, you're crazy, or we've all been there, right? If you know what I'm talking about. But so that stuff I used to take personal too, but I don't now. I just, bless and release those people. Thank you and move on, right? So that's okay. I'm confident now in what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And so I'm more aware, I guess, and I'm more confident. So that's what I'm doing now. Number 3 is comparisonitis. So comparisonitis, that also goes along with imposter syndrome. So comparisonitis is another word I'm making up for you today on the podcast. And what I mean by that is looking at everybody else and thinking everybody else has their hot mess. No hot mess. They got all their poop together. That's not the case. And, looking at when I was running my shops and my studios, like, oh, everybody else is like so much better at teaching workshops. Everybody's they're merchandising so much better. They got their everything together. They're making so much money. They're doing all the things. That's not true. That's that whole iceberg syndrome. And actually, as a business coach now and, deep diving into hundreds of retailers, back ends of businesses, there's hot messes everywhere. We all have it. I had it. You probably have something that's not perfect and that other people covet or think that you're doing better. And it's not so much thinking that people are doing better. It's how they're showing up, maybe. Sometimes that can be hard. And again, I did a whole podcast on how to use other people's success to fuel you. And I actually think it's a really great podcast, if I do say so myself. But really, that podcast is about how to use what is it that they're doing that looks so much better or that you covet, and it can be a mentor or it could be like a big, if you want to be like Pottery Barn, I'll never be Pottery Barn. Well, what can you take from Pottery Barn that you can do? So I had to also deal with the mindset of not freezing when that would set in. And that happens a lot, right? So I've really worked on that all the time. That's the mindset side of being a CEO, right? Understanding that, I'm just going to do the best that I can. I'm going to show up. My customers seem to really like it. So I do have a few strategies that I use even now. I use all the time now when I'm feeling imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome, if you're not aware what that is, if you haven't heard that before, it just means feeling like, what the heck am I doing running a store? Or what the heck am I doing business coaching? Or who am I to whatever it is that you feel? And that's a really common thing. Like, why would people want to come to my shop, right? Like, why? I'm nothing special, but you are special. And, you are doing things that other people aren't doing. So understanding imposter syndrome and what that's limiting you for. And that was actually what my shift was, and how it's changed for me now is that I guess maybe I'm aware. A couple of little tips here. Here's a little tip. Write out 25 awesome things that make you unique to your competitors or in the world in general. What are 25 things that are that you just know that you can rock and you're good at and, just come naturally to you and customers are saying to you all the time, I just love how you, whatever, I love this about your shop. And keeping client notes and testimonials handy because you get them. I know you do, even little screenshots and grabs and, whatever. I actually keep a file and I've shared this many times. I have a bulletin board with notes from my clients and cards and little gifties that I've received over the years. And I also have a file folder with screenshots in it. I know this sounds really crazy, but it's like when I'm feeling this, what the heck am I doing? Or why am I doing this? I pull those out and I remind myself it's a ripple effect of what I'm doing. I'm helping clients and helping their business and helping their families and helping their communities. And, oh, look, here's a note from Amy and Susan and, here's some notes. Okay. All right. Keep going, Wendy. I know that sounds crazy, but that does help your mindset. So we all have that. Everybody does. And we can convince ourselves and we can prove to ourselves that we're not good. We can get evidence to anything if we feel like, yep, there you go. Look, my whole desk is a mess. It's a hot mess. Or, yep, there, no sales this afternoon. Yep, that's it. They found out I'm no good at shopkeeping. So, yep, that's it. No one's going to come in again. So we can get kind of frozen and think that everybody's going to everybody else. And again, this comparisonitis and for me, it used to make me freeze. It would just sort of make me stop doing everything. I would stop showing up or whatever. So, you have to learn to keep moving forward. So I hope that's helpful to you and somebody out there. Number 4 in mistakes I've made along the way, or as I said, my 7 deadly sins, or whatever we want to call it, is I was a really poor communicator with my staff and team. And I think for a long time, I just expected everybody else to, like, maybe it's an assumption that they would understand exactly what they should do. It's like, duh, don't you see what needs to be done? And that's not the way it should be. That made me a poor leader. I wasn't putting systems in place with my people. I wasn't training them properly. And I didn't have policies and procedure manuals in place. And I guess it was just, winging it, the whole winging it and assuming other people would wing it with me, right? So that was not good. That's not good. I still have an issue with that. And there's team people listening to this right now that are going, oh yeah. So what I do now and how it has changed, fast forward a few years to having good team members, I actually hired somebody to help me be better organized. And, I have somebody who sets up the systems for me now. And we have things like Asana, we have policies and procedures now, we have, checklists and, all of the things that we need to have in a business to run smoothly. And so it's not guesswork. People know what to do. We have team meetings now. Imagine that, and I mean team meetings like in here's what we're doing and here's why we're doing it. And, that kind of thing, and having people on board with your culture. So I feel like I'm a way better boss than I was back in the day. I think I talk about that in my cafe days when I did a podcast way back, I think like 14 or 15. I'll put the show notes here. I put in that podcast, I shared, how my expectations were with my staff, that everybody was awesome and everybody just figured it out. And anyway, I talk about it a lot in there, and some of the crappy things that happened when I wasn't a great boss back then. And I feel like I'm a better boss, and I'm still working on this. Is something I'm still working on. So I have invested a lot in this as well too. I've also invested in tools, and I've invested in training for myself, and I've invested in training apps and all the things, right, that make things easier. And I've invested in people to help me be a better boss. So, investing in my time and my personal development as a boss has been really big for me as well. Number 5, I'm guilty of overworking, or I was guilty. I'm trying really hard not to be, but hustle and busy, taking over from my family, taking over from all of the things, just at the dinner table, all of the things, bringing the computer to bed at night, that kind of thing. And I'm sure if you're listening, you've been guilty of that at some point in time, and that can't continue. You have to draw a line in the sand with that. So what I do now is I have office hours. I've set boundaries in place, which a lot of people, people in my inner circle, my retailers' inner circle know, I don't normally jump into the groups at night or on weekends. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's not an expectation. They can tag me in a question in the inner circle if they have a question. My one-on-one clients, my mastermind members, people who have my texts, they know they can text me anytime. We have Voxer conversations and Voxer training back and forth, but I'm not always going to be there on the weekends. So I try to put the boundaries in place. And, and people respect that. I really feel that by putting those boundaries in place, people have, I guess I'm practicing what I teach, I guess is what I'm saying, because we can't be on 24/7. So if somebody leaves me a Facebook message, if you have a shop and somebody leaves you a Facebook message at 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday night, which used to happen to me, like when I was painting and teaching painting, people would put a question and then they would get mad because normally Wendy would answer right away. That's just dumb. We can't do that. So, and once you put boundaries in place, people will learn your boundaries. I stopped giving my text number. There's my mastermind members and my kids have my text number, my sister. I think that's it. So, that's it. It's not all over the world anymore, right? It used to be everywhere. As people were texting and calling, and that's just, I changed my number, honestly, because of that. So, we have to have boundaries in place. You have to have boundaries in place, and that will change everything. I'm not saying I don't still think about work on the weekends and all of that, but you just can't be an overworker all the time. It doesn't serve you, doesn't serve your business, and it doesn't serve your clients in the long run. We can do anything for a short period of time, but living like that all the time is not serving you. I want you to hear that. So if you've daydreamed and gone off. I want you to come back. You just can't work all the time, which brings me to number 6. Number 6 of my really bad, mistakes that I made along the way with my career, my business, was my health. And again, if you've taken Retail Made Simple, if you're a member of my inner circle, if you're a mastermind member, we talk a lot about you being the biggest asset in your business. And guess what happens if your biggest asset you think is your computer, the beautiful computer, or your POS system that you have, and it smashes and crashes and you can't run your business anymore? Well, that's you, my friend. So I was guilty of stress and maybe a little too much wine at night and not exercising. And, burnout was always on the horizon, I guess. Burnout was always just there. It was always just sort of hovering around me in the early days. And I actually have, had lots of burnout moments I'm not proud to tell you about. And I have shared this. I have shared my story of burnout in my shop way back in the beginning of the podcast, and we'll tag that here. I do share my burnout story, but it's like burnout, or you just can't continue, right? So that's not healthy. So I've realized over the years that I'm my biggest asset, and you are your biggest asset of your business. You have to stay healthy. Your health matters. Again, back to the boundaries, back to being confident and getting help and all of the things. So what I do now and how things have changed for me now is that I'm trying, I keep trying to get healthier. I mean, I went through a period over this past winter where I kind of got lazy again. So now I'm back to walking and things that give me joy. Joy is a big thing of my health as well, too. If you're just work. So I make a point every day to try to find something fun and make me laugh, or have, to do something fun, family, health, all of those things. And again, inside the inner circle, I have this entire, we call it the wheel of life. And we talk about it and making sure that we're taking care of all of the parts of our life that keep us healthy. But for me, actually, like my body health, when I feel energetic and I'm feeling good about myself, my brain feels better, I'm clearer, I'm sharper, I'm showing up better. I'm not frumpy feeling. When I feel shabby, when I feel shabby, I kind of show up, maybe not show up shabby, but it's harder to get excited about things. So what do they say? Shabby is as shabby does. So let's get out of the shabbiness, right? And let's make sure that we're leveling up and elevating our health so that we can elevate the rest of our life and our business, right? Okay, last but not least, going to wrap this up quick, I promise. We are looking at, I was really guilty about taking a passive and a really poor approach to business development. Okay, number 7 of my deadly sins of my career, the mistakes I've made along the way. I took a poor and probably too passive approach to business development. And I find it embarrassing to talk about it, but that's reality, right? That's the real deal. That's what really happened. So I wasn't a planner. I didn't plan out things. I was winging it. My philosophy, I guess, was, it'll all work out. And I was just in time for everything, like from bill paying to event planning to setting up my workshops to, I don't know, everything, like just, even everything, I guess, even just going to the bank, everything was just in time. I was just getting everything done in time. It was fine. It was all fine. It was fine. It was working. It was fine. I was winging it a lot. And maybe some of you have had that experience. And I also spent a lot of time thinking in my head, I guess, thinking I'll figure it out. I always do. I'll figure it out. I always do. And that was a mantra, I guess, that I had in my head. And I still believe that that's important mantra to have. I will figure it out. But sometimes the answer was in front of me that, I needed to figure it out by hiring help or investing in things or doing something. I was also really avoiding my numbers. I didn't have time. I was busy. My bookkeeping was piling up like day after day after day. There was like tons of paperwork. I was just again, just in time bookkeeping is not the way you want to be running a business. I see that now. I see the power in having my numbers and all of that, just having that in order and not winging all of that. So how it changed was I invested a lot. I invested a lot into finding a good coach and finding mentors, and also part of the passive side of my business development. One of the things I realized after, you kind of don't know what you didn't know. Well, there's a lot of things I didn't know, but one of the things that I realized when I really paid attention to, I couldn't share that with anybody. I couldn't talk about it with anybody. I couldn't talk about my numbers. And I guess that's fine. I'm private and I was running my own business, and that's okay. But what I realized was the power, like when I did start investing in coaches and I did apply for my first mastermind. I belonged to a mastermind group, and I wanted to throw up. I'm going to be honest. I wanted to throw up the first time I took a business course. I wanted to throw up, like for real, like uncomfortable, gross feeling, wanting to throw up, like scared out of my mind, honestly, kind of money to invest in a mastermind group and my first coach and all of that. But I realized what happened was like, it was a safe container, safe place to speak about, I'm struggling with this or I'm struggling with that or my numbers or whatever, and being honest with people and who got it. And that was enlightening to me. That was like the big aha moment. And that's the container I try to make sure that my people and my members in my mastermind group and inner circle and everybody, that we talk about that stuff. We talk about the hard times. And I try to have that safe container for them. I learned how to be a better boss. I learned how to put my CEO hat on, like I try to help people do now, that ripple effect, I guess. And I really have stepped into that role. It was a big shift. I think the one thing, if you can take away anything about my approach to business development at the time versus now, is I realized that if I wanted to build a successful business and I wanted to do something that mattered, I had to take the reins. I had to do it the best that I could do it. I had to stop pretending and living in this hobby world, I guess, if that, I would never have said that at the time that I was living in a hobby world, but I had to really rise up and step into that. And it took a while. I mean, at the time, and again, I've shared that story many times, it was uncomfortable putting myself in a room. I've always done this and I love, and I still do this. I still actually just this week, as I'm recording this, this week did something else that made me want to throw up. And I've, invested in something and I'm putting myself in the room where the conversation is different, right? Where the conversation is different, where people understand my mission, my goals, and, and I feel empowered by other people around me. I'm investing in team members that feel the same, that kind of thing. That's the shift. I am building something that matters. You're building something that matters. It's not about you and, your limitations. We all have limitations. I had so many limitations. I still do. I'm still working. We're always working on business development. There's, the famous saying that I can't remember right now, but the famous saying of, your business is only going to be as successful as the level of your business development. That's not the exact quote, but that's what it means. If we are not always learning and growing, neither is our business. So I really when I stepped outside of myself and I looked down at the big picture and I thought, okay, what has to change here so I can stop winging it? I can stop being just in time. I can stop trying to figure it out like I always do. I realized that what was in the best interest of the business is the framework that I always had to come first so that I could have the lifestyle I wanted too, right? So, I mean, it's both, but I am building a business and I needed to think like a business owner, not just, Wendy, I had to think about that as a CEO. So, and I was trying to build a business that would support my lifestyle, which, meant not being so overworked, watching my health, being a better boss, stop comparing, have more confidence, all of those things, and stop trying to be Superwoman. So all of those things were my, 7 mistakes that I've made along the way. I don't know if that helps you any, or if you've identified or seen yourself in any of those things, or if you've ever experienced them. I will say that I work with, hundreds and hundreds of retailers. And I see, similarities for a lot of self-employed people. It's just, it's common. So, we have to have faith in ourselves. We have to know that all these struggles are learning things, right? We don't actually fail at anything. We're learning. That's what they say. But it does feel like, sloshing through the weeds through a lot of this. And, it can be easier. It doesn't have to be so hard. And sometimes I'm just a little slow on the uptake, apparently, to learn these things. So my 7 deadly sins of my career are the 7 mistakes that I've made along the way. The first one being a superwoman and a little bit arrogant, taking everything personally, my comparisonitis and my imposter syndrome, my poor leadership skills, I guess, or being, poor communication and being a bad boss, overworking myself, not taking care of my health, and my last one being passive and taking a really, I guess, passive approach is how I kind of think of it. That it wasn't that I wasn't doing business development, I was just taking a really passive, just wasn't being aggressive with my business development, and I realized I needed to be. So I hope that you have found today's podcast helpful. I hope you took a nugget. I hope that this has been there's some part of this that you're going to take action on. I would love to know, and you can, reach out, let me know if you found this helpful. I love feedback. You can send me an email or reach out on Instagram at wendybattenbiz. Take a screenshot of this podcast and share it on your Instagram and tag me, and I will be sure to share you and say hi. And I'd be so grateful if you could do that for us as well too. I love doing these podcasts. I don't like doing these ones where I'm talking about myself so much here, but it is life in the trenches and from a real retailer. And I, as a business coach, I'm definitely not perfect. This is not where I come from. Hopefully you see that and can forgive me my weaknesses. But, I think we all have it. And I think we grow from all these. And I think all of these experiences that I've had help make me a better coach, to be honest. Well, I know they do, actually. I'm more confident in that part of it, to be honest. And I hope they help you as well, too. Have a fantastic week, my friends. Love hearing from you. Let us know, leave us a review, and hope to see you next week. I have another really great podcast for you. So we'll see you. Have a great sales week. And you know what? If nobody's told you lately, you're doing awesome. You're awesome. Thanks for being here. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I'm so glad that you're here to join us this week, and I hope you found value in what we're sharing here. I want to remind you that our website has all of the show notes. You can find it at wendybatten.com/podcast. Everything that you need to hear about today's podcast is there. Also an opportunity if you need to reach out to me. If I can support you in any way whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. So thanks for joining us. Please leave a review, subscribe if you can, and never miss an episode. We hope to see you back here again next week. Thanks, my friend. Have a great week.